Hey guys, welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. We are your host and hostess, Tim and Kimberly Scott, and we are jumping into our marriage series, which we've had some really good responses from.
We had some great responses.
And we've covered so far, let's see, we've covered 20.
20 top tips.
20
You call them the
Kim
fun
and
tips.
Tim's fun tips for
that's
marriage.
Such a girl thing to say. Guys go, hey, want to fix your marriage? Here's number 21.
Let me give you my 5 fun tips.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the term fun. These are just tips. Why am I going with the
I
southern
know.
accent?
Actually, 30 seems a little bit like a lot.
It's a lot.
Usually it's like the top 10.
Marriage is
We know that
complex.
marriage is complex, right? So it's complex and it's complex. It may be a tomato, might be a tomato. That's an example of marriage for you right there, is how you pronounce your words.
And it could be a problem for some people. Not us.
So, right now.
We would never argue over the pronunciation of something.
Because you would say that I'm wrong and then it's just the argument's over.
No, I have problems. I have an ongoing, I've admitted this before, I have an ongoing struggle with vowels.
Vowels?
Yeah,
Yes.
vowels are my
That's
trip
true.
point.
Your kids tease you about that.
I struggle. I say words weird.
Like you say roof instead of roof.
Yeah, we went over that in the past, but I can just tell you, I do struggle with vowels.
Yeah.
So pronunciation, I go with you sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. What's funny though is we've talked about how since we've have been diving into this series, we've had some really good fights.
We have. We really have. We've been arguing a little more than usual.
I know.
I think it's the devil.
Well,
It's the devil.
Well, let's
going with
blame
that.
it on the devil.
The devil made me do
the devil on the shoulder,
And the fact that
angel
we're
on the
buying a
sword.
house, that's a high stressor.
Yes. No, but
And-
I'm just saying it's ironic. Okay, so here's something interesting. My
Moving.
parents are pastors, and we'll get into this, I promise, about marriage. But my dad used to say whatever the Lord had put on his heart to actually teach on was something he found himself working through or would be challenged by around the same time, which is so weird.
So that's why I always
Yeah.
preach on success.
Yeah.
Because I struggle with success. It's really been a problem for me in
Here's
my
the
life.
point. The reason why we are giving you 30 is that after we've been together 14 years this week.
Yes, we have.
And so as life changes, so do some of the challenges. So you
Right.
learn new tools, and we got some tools. We're excited to share.
We got
with you.
tools.
So the first one that we're jumping into is number 21, and it's important to learn about your spouse.
Learning about your spouse.
Yeah. And actually continue. I want to say continue to learn about your
Yeah,
spouse.
that should go without saying, but I think people go, you know what, I know her or I know him. I think women are better at, learning and growing and, discovery. Guys come home, say, this was my day was like.
Yeah.
I'm a verbal processor, so I do that more than a lot of men.
Yeah.
But they just
Throughout
say
the day,
this.
actually, you'll call and process, and then
I'm kind of your stalker.
well, in a good way.
Kind of, well, not always. It's like you ignore me. But anyway, that's another fight for another day. But it's important to constantly discover. Are you discovering who your wife is, who your husband is? Are you spending time to ask and listen? Because this is a biblical concept.
Yes. And I think the key is continuing to ask questions. I have to say, very cool. This last week, we went on a really great date. We were celebrating my birthday. Thanks, guys. If you want to send in a gift, the address is
no gifts, just money.
But what was really cool
Just kidding.
because you planned this date. Usually, you'll say, "Where do you want to go?" Yada yada yada. Babe, you were on it. You got us like a great table in a great restaurant.
Reservations ahead of time. Come on.
And this was the part that I just fell in love with you all over again.
Yeah.
Is you came to that dinner prepared to ask intentional questions that actually fall into this topic, because I thought, well, you really cared about my answers and you wanted to like kind of unpack them. Mm-hmm. And that made
My
me
therapist
feel
told me
very
to do
heard.
that.
I'm your therapist, so
You are, which is correct.
well, we've had a few.
Yeah.
But that was really meaningful. And the point was that I wanted to make, and then we're gonna move on to the passage with this, is that in life, we go through seasons of change. Mm-hmm. If we're not intentionally pursuing our spouse on, good questions and finding out about their growth, or if they're stuck or whatever, then we don't know. Yeah. And then you wake up one morning thinking, do I even really know this person?
So ask your spouse this question. Do you think I know you? Mm-hmm. It might be an interesting thing. or do you know me? You know, that might be a probing question. Good opportunity. Not always on a date, like a date night, because that should be more fun and romantic.
Coffee thing,
but a
maybe.
coffee thing. Go to coffee where you got no kids around if you have children, and you just have a time to just go, do we really know each other?
Yeah.
And here's the scripture why.
Yeah. So it's 1 Peter 3:7, and it says this: likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, but we don't have time to break it all down. I think we've shared this a little bit in the past, but I think it's important to recognize when this was written, Peter was writing to a lot of his readers were Jewish background. And in the Jewish culture of the first century, it was very patriarchal. And what that means is that they, it was a hierarchical system where the man was kind of everything and the woman was nothing. In fact, men and women did not pray together.
I know.
They were not even allowed to pray together. So we go to church today, we pray together. You know, we have women that speak, we have women that lead in prayer, husbands and wives pray together. There's a misunderstanding about, it says, if you don't treat your wife as a joint heir, your prayers will be hindered. So I've heard that preached where it says, God will not listen to your prayer. God always listens to your prayer.
Yeah.
Don't buy that. But he always listens to your prayer. He doesn't always respond in the favorable way if you're not really in God's will and you're not really praying in the name of Christ and so forth. So that's another study. But this is not talking about whether or not God answers or hears your prayers. When he says your prayers will be hindered, what that means is you as husband and wife will not pray together if you don't see your wife as a joint heir. 1 Peter 3:7, the one
won't
you
pray
just read.
together?
You won't pray together. Jewish people did not pray together,
I see.
husbands and wives. Yeah. But what Peter is saying to Christians is, if you see your wife as joint heirs, it's different than the Jewish culture that said, we're not joint heirs.
Right.
I'm the spiritual one, you're nothing. That's really how they saw women.
Yeah.
So if you have that attitude as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, Peter is saying, your prayers will be hindered. You won't pray together. And we're going to talk about that in our last few points about how important it is to pray together. But this is what he's saying. He says you need to live with your wife in an understanding way. And so we kind of ask these questions. Do you know your spouse? What are some of the areas that are really important to know?
Well, I think one of the best books we've ever read was by John Townsend, and
I don't think it was by John Townsend.
No, he was a partner in it.
No.
It was called Love Languages.
Yeah,
I'm
going to look it up while you're talking. Yeah, it was written by somebody else.
And we all have a certain love language. How we perceive the feeling of love and how we give love. Sometimes those are different things. So these are the different love languages: words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Quality time.
Exactly.
Receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So there are some people who are like, they feel most loved when their husband or wife serves them by doing something for them.
Yeah.
There are some, like you and I have similar love languages where physical touch and words of affirmation are real high. So we give that naturally in showing love, but we feel loved by also receiving that. And I think receiving gifts and giving gifts is kind of another thing that I think a lot of people feel cherished by getting them and giving them.
You're a gift giver. I'm not. Yeah. I don't care about receiving
but
gifts.
When you do, they're good.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. It's not a big deal to me. By the way, I looked it up. It's not Townsend or
who is it?
It's Gary Chapman.
Oh,
yeah, Gary Chapman.
Okay,
wrote the book Love Languages, but it's a popular book. If you've never read it, it's really helpful because even though it's kind of categorical, I'm not real big on categories like what's your temperament, what's your strength in Strength
what's your
Finders.
Number on the Enneagram.
Yeah,
you don't like it because
what sign are you?
You don't like it because it reads your mail, Tim.
Yeah. I just don't like stuff like that because it categorizes people. But it is kind of interesting to find somebody like gift giving is not a big deal to me, either receiving or giving. I do it because it matters to you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to know your wife's or your spouse's love language. Quality time for both of us is very important. Acts of service, I think both of us are pretty big on that.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Physical touch, So, but if we are to follow the scripture, it might be helpful to read that book, and then go through it with your wife. Go through it with your husband, and really get into it. What other areas should we know?
Do you know his or her mission or vision for life? Like, why are they here? Like, what's their purpose? What's their drive? We assume we do.
Yeah. So everybody thinks that we all have the same
Right.
purpose and mission. So my mission is I exist to teach scripture.
Yep.
That's really,
your jam.
and my vision is to do just that, to teach scripture,
How
to find
your vision
avenues.
fulfills how to, the ways.
Yeah, it's the what do you do? The mission is why do you exist?
Right.
I really exist for the purpose of communicating biblical truth.
And what's wrapped
Family,
up in that
everybody.
is like, it's your passion, it's your greatest joy, it's the heaviest burden you carry, but it fuels you, like all of those things that it can be brought into like that
If I
category.
preach to thousands, it's fulfilling to me. If I preach to 10 people,
I know.
it doesn't matter. The context doesn't matter. The act of fulfilling that. And that is true with everybody. So our question to you is, do you know your spouse's mission in life? And maybe you should come up with a vision statement for you and your spouse.
And there's no wrong answer, by the way.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer.
I mean, unless
It
it's
is
illegal.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I feel, I'm
that's a good
thinking
point.
from a woman's perspective, I think throughout most of my adult life, having had so many children, I almost felt like as the culture shifted, I had to apologize in a way for myself for not being career oriented or trying to get all the degrees like some of my contemporaries. And where I am today at 53, I can proudly say my mission has been raising my family and raising the next generation and being an influence, and my passion and my purpose and my greatest joys, and but and also a burden, but it's I know how God wired me to be. That's first. And then what comes after that for us has been outside of our family and ministry and church, the church, which is an extended family, really. It's another extension of family. So but I think that there is no wrong answer. You got to know how God wired you and your spouse.
So here's a good way to think about it. So once you know your spouse's mission, kind of the vision, like for me, I know that that's the most important. I need to get alongside of that and support that financially, investment of time.
Yeah, give me a raise on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's another story. That's called budgeting. We're not in agreement on that.
Well,
but anyway,
darn.
yeah. But
I put you on the spot on the podcast.
Yeah. You get a nickel more each week.
Oh, good.
So what I was going to say is that, you need to support that financially. You need to support that time-wise. And kind of get out of the way of being a problem for that. Now, there's balance to that,
Sure.
you have a mission, you and your spouse has a mission, and when those are maybe contrary to each other, you need to find that
out.
balance.
Yeah.
So work that out.
Yeah, that's so
but
good.
another thing that we think of when you talk about learning about your spouse is, do you know what he or she loves? What is it that he or she loves? So I met a guy in Montana. His name is Trey. His favorite thing in life, and he's got a bunch of kids, by the way, and has a great ministry that relates to children and so forth. And he travels all over the world, but his greatest joy in life is fly fishing.
Oh yeah.
That's why we're there. He loves fly fishing, and his wife, his family actually supports that. And I see when he posts on social media, sometimes is with one of his children, teaching him how to fly fish, his daughter or son. It's just pretty exciting to see that. So do you know what he or she loves? And I think that's really important. Now here's just to move on to our next point, I want to get there in a minute, but I just wanted to share this attitudes for marriage that he talks about. Once you know your spouse, it says, finally, all of you, now he's talking about, all couples as well as all individuals, have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, tenderheartedness, and humble mind. You had read that earlier. But I think that these attitudes, think about if you have the attitude of that you're going to be united, that our greatest goal in our marriage is to be united. Our greatest goal is to have sympathy for one another. Our greatest goal is to have that brotherly love, like we're family. We're not at odds with each other. Tender-hearted, that we actually have a tenderness toward each other's needs, a tenderness toward each other, what you love, what your vision, your mission is, and humility. So I set aside mine, you set aside yours to fulfill that for each other. So Peter doesn't just say know each other, but then he gives us these attitudes that couple with that, which I think is important.
Partner with it, yeah.
So number 22, because we got to move on. Don't mock your spouse when he or she is hurting. And let me just say, a lot of parents do this, especially dads, when children fall, when they're a toddler and they fall and they go, you're okay, you're all right. I mean, some kids are very dramatic. No problem for you to allow that child to be dramatic for a moment, but let them express their pain and don't diminish their pain. That says your emotions don't matter. When the emotions become irresponsible, of course, you have to deal with that. But don't diminish your child. Don't diminish your spouse. Saying you are fine. Or what's the thing they say about
calm down.
Calm down. Calm down. There's this old saying, in the history of telling people to calm down, no one has ever calmed down when someone told them to calm down.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's just like you just...
I made that mistake the other day when we were getting pulled over by a policeman.
Yeah, you sure did. Yeah, I got pulled over by a police officer.
You didn't get a ticket,
did.
but yeah.
Because you were calm and I was
like,
calm.
Calm down.
Yeah. Yes, I deserved a ticket, and he gave me a warning, which was great. But anyway, I'm not an evil driver. It's been over 10 years since I've been pulled over. But anyway, you don't say to your spouse, calm down. Yeah. Don't mock your spouse when he or she is hurting. 1 Peter 3:9 says this, and this is very convicting, and I want you to hear this. Hear God's heart for your marriage. Do not repay evil for evil. The term actually evil is kakas, which means bad. It's not extreme evil, but when somebody's bad to you, don't be bad back. Or reviling for reviling. The word reviling means abusive speech. When someone is abusive to you, they're belittling you, they're using pejoratives, or they're judging your motives. Don't judge their motives. Don't retaliate. But on the contrary to retaliating, bless. For this is what you're called, to obtain a blessing. The word bless, eulogeo, which is this word eulogy. You ever been to a funeral where they eulogize? What's a eulogy?
It's a speaking blessing upon someone's life.
Yeah. Basically. So you speak well. It literally means to speak well. So when you eulogize, I've done many eulogies over the years, you basically say all the good things. It's not the time to get up there and say all the bad things they did.
Sometimes they do, and it's funny. Just a joke.
As a joke, but you don't want to say, the guy was a jerk to his wife. You just don't go there at a funeral. What I'm suggesting, or what we're suggesting, is before life ends, eulogize your spouse.
Oh, that's good.
Speak well of your spouse. In fact, find things. We do this for each other. Find things to edify. So you as a couple, even if there's been some belittling or some angry words said to you by your spouse, it doesn't take much of a brain to retaliate, but it does take a great amount of self-discipline to give back to your spouse out of love something that speaks well of them.
And maybe not in that moment.
Yeah,
because that's unnatural.
Hey,
and
you're a
seems
jerk.
contrived.
Well, you're nice.
Well,
well, now you're going to fight. But no, look for ways to speak.
Right. And
well.
I think what's important is choosing your timing on that, obviously, but then also giving authentic, genuine compliments, not just like, coming up with something that doesn't really fit just to say something nice.
Well,
so just being intentional to say, hey, listen, even if it's in regards to your confrontation, I just wanted to say, even though that went really badly, I want to genuinely thank you for what you said about this. I've been thinking about it, like just find a way to compliment or bring blessing back into that situation and compliment them for things that they actually that are true. Like, some compliments, like as an example, we could joke
this is
about
number 23, by the way.
Number 23. Sorry.
Is genuine compliments.
Right. Finding genuine compliments. It's like when if I were to say to Tim, why don't you, instead of, God has called you to teach the word, instead this morning, why don't you get up and lead worship and bring out your guitar while you're at it? I would guess that would be that's disingenuous because you're such a great worship leader.
Yeah.
Like that would be painful.
That would be, disingenuous.
Because you have all the passion and energy, just none of the talent.
I literally, this is true. When I'm in church and if Gracie's sitting next to me, she will start laughing because I sing so loudly.
And she's deaf in one ear.
Yeah, and she's deaf, and she's even got her bad ear to me. And then she'll put her other ear hand over her other ear. But you do it too. You'll kind of look over at me
I'll try to
or poke me and
hand.
go, quiet down, dude.
Because you're leading worship from the front row.
Let's just face it. Everybody in the auditorium, no matter what size auditorium, can hear me sing.
But then when you get up to do your preaching, babe, I'm your best cheerleader. And those are genuine compliments.
Well, let me tell you something that you may not know. There was a day where I used to lead worship. I'm not saying I did a good job, but I had my guitar.
Volunteer? You weren't paid, right?
I was the lead pastor. They couldn't say no.
Exactly.
So I got up there, and we were trying to start a contemporary thing, and so I'm leading worship with the guitar. I had a little band.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
I didn't know where to come in. I remember
so you couldn't fire yourself.
I was just like, I would be playing the guitar, and then I had a piano player, and I remember she would go, our listeners can't hear, but then she would be playing when it was time to come in for me to sing. She would go with her head.
And now,
yeah,
Tim.
if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. But she just like that, and I knew to come in.
Yes.
And I was a horrible singer.
Well,
I was actually not bad. I wasn't horrible.
You had all of the. Yeah. It's about sometimes just.
So here's the point. The point is, give genuine compliments,
yes.
Not fake ones like you're the best basketball player.
Right.
We would never say that to Shara, our daughter,
no.
who is not athletic.
She's got passion for it.
She got passion.
Yeah.
So does Gracie. Mm-hmm. In fact, here's an interesting thing. For her birthday, she wanted the family to have a basketball game, go to the park and play basketball, which we did.
Yeah,
badly. She's going to listen to this. I'm going to be in trouble. She is horrible.
She's the worst.
She's the worst. No, Shara's the worst. Yeah. Shara thinks she was good. The boys played pretty well.
The boys were pretty good. Yeah.
But the girls were horrible.
They suck.
And even the daughter-in-laws, I'm just saying, they're good at other things.
But it was probably one of the funnest nights of our life.
Yeah, we had a blast. Much fun. Anyway, so listen, we're going to get into 24 and beyond. We have more fun tips, as we call them, for marriage.
Tim and Kim's fun tips.
We're so glad that you've joined us, and we're going to kind of develop this a little bit more. We've got a couple of more episodes on marriage. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, let us know. We would love to hear from you. God bless. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.